Hey everybody, welcome to another live stream. Today we are joined by several people. So we're here to wrap up the start to finish series with Jacquire King and Oak and Dash, and we brought some friends. So we've got Rich from Oak and Dash, Jacquire of course, and Colton Lee. Pretty awesome. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Great, man. I'm happy to be here. Good to see you guys' faces again.
Yes, good to see
Yeah.
you. Good to see everybody here. Thank you for joining us. I'm happy to be here. And man, what an epic long series that was. I appreciate everybody's like staying tuned and patience with the rollout on that. We had no idea we were creating so much, did we, Mark?
Not at all. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the longest Puremix series released for sure. So but yeah, everybody really hung in for the whole thing, and there's just so much awesome comment or content in there. The whole idea of that series is to be a fly on the wall and just be able to see every moment that happens from start to finish. Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty awesome. We for anybody who hasn't seen the series, we got to see Jacquire produce Oak and Ash, the single "Keep the Light On," and they came in, started with some pre-programmed tracks and a little bit of a demo, and then tracked all the way to the end, mixed it on camera, and yeah. So after the whole rollout of the series, we started up a mixing contest, and you guys got to download the entire session and then submit your own mixes for a chance to win some stuff from PSP. So we have the winners of that to announce today, and beyond that, we're going to do some Q&A stuff, and you guys can submit your questions below for all of these guys about anything that you want to. It's really awesome that we have a unique perspective from Rich today, so you guys can ask him, questions from the artist perspective. We've got Colton, who helped engineer the session as well, and of course Jacquire. So make sure you get your questions in below, and we'll get to a Q&A in a little bit here. But why don't we start off by just kind of talking about the mixing contest a little bit, Jacquire, and kind of explain how it works. So over the course of the entire thing, we had a little over 300 mixes submitted, I think. And how we kind of get through that, because there's so many mixes, we have some of Fab's assistant engineers at Flux. They go through and listen and kind of bounce stuff back and forth off of each other, and then based on some criteria that they've set up, they submit their favorite 10 to Jacquire to go through, and then from that 10, Jacquire picks his top 3 picks. And do you have anything you want to add to some of the stuff that you were hearing?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, thank you for everyone that submitted a mix. And, it was even, I know how competitive it is in terms of whittling it down. Even it was difficult for me, even with my 10, even the 10 that I was presented with. And, and even though I was really focused on the 10, out of curiosity, and, I was impressed by how many mixes were submitted. I kind of like, I flipped through some. There's so much good content, so many good mixes done. It was hard to kind of get it down to the 3. It's just like, it's tough, but it's a contest. There has to be winner. There has to be a number one, and over 300 not winners. But appreciate everybody spending the time to do it. Hopefully it was a good learning experience. It was fun for me to hear what other takes on it were. Even if it didn't really feel like it was a mix that hit me the right way, there was some unique things and perspectives and just some liberties that people took, which is what you should do when you're mixing. You should interact with it and create something that represents the way you feel about it. So yeah, it was the quality of what I listened to was great, and I enjoyed the submissions and sort of whittling it down to what we've decided as, or what I've decided as, the top 3.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, I think we can go ahead and announce those. And before I do that, I want to take a second to talk about something that we set up for this, which is pretty fun. For those top 10, as many of the Puremix watchers know, we just launched a new service called MixUp.audio, And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, that's a mix commenting revision kind of service. So basically, you can upload your mix, and your clients can drop comments on the timeline for any mix notes that they might have. You can invite the entire band to that. They can reply to each other's comments. And then when you put up a new version, they can switch back and forth between those versions and have them be level matched. So super useful, and there's a plugin that will actually show all of those comments inside of Pro Tools, and there's timestamps that will snap your timeline to the exact moment of the comment. So it's really useful when you're going back and forth with an artist. But for the mixing contest specifically, we set up a MixUp player with the top 10 mixes that'll let you go through. They're all synced up, so they're all in time with each other, and you can A/B between all of the top 10. So everybody's going to be inside of that mix-up player, and I'm going to post a link in the comments in Crowdcast, and then if somebody from the team can also put that in YouTube for me, you guys can check that out, and I will do that just after we announce the winners, because if you look at it, you'll know. So before
Hey, Mark, may I interject real quick?
Yeah.
So that was, using, because I reviewed the 10 mixes in the MixUp platform, and I've got to say that the level matching was super useful. It really, it made the synchronized timeline, and I didn't use the comment process, but I am very excited about this, and the one thing that I can speak to is just sort of the ease of use, just in sort of a very simple way that I used it, and that the level matching was also very, very, very helpful. So it's I'm excited about the opportunity to use it, and how well it worked in this particular instance. And just the commenting process is going to be super, super powerful and super helpful in terms of like organization and communication on projects. It's just like, especially, Colton knows this too. It's just like, because he's juggling multiple mixing projects. It's just kind of a lot to keep track of, and so it's nice. One thing I wanted to ask, Mark, you mentioned that it shows you the comment process, or plugin shows you in Pro Tools, but it works on all DAWs, right?
It does, yes. Yeah, it works on all of the DAWs,
Okay.
and there's different setups for it. In Pro Tools, it's rewired to get it to control the timeline, but it does work in all the DAWs. So we've got some videos on the site about how to set it up too, based on whatever you're in. So yeah,
Killer.
So like Luna. So yeah, awesome. So let's. Yeah, they're saying that they need level matching on my microphone input, so I just turned it up for them. Nice. Okay, so our sponsor for the mixing contest was PSP AudioWare, and the prizes are third place gets to choose one plugin of their choice, second place gets to choose 2 plugins, and first place gets to choose 3 plugins. So really, really great stuff there. Jacquire, you used some of the inside of the production on the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Vintage Warmer is almost used every time I mix a project in some capacity, typically on guitars. But I've used it on mix bus, parallel buses. It's a really powerful. PSP makes tons of great plugins, and their channel strip is really amazing. Colton and I were sort of privy to the development and the beta of that. I forget. I think the channel strip name has changed. Forgive me, PSP, but I'm blanking on what it is. But they have a lot of great plugins. I use Vintage Warmer, the Vintage Warmer 2 a lot. So maybe that'll be one you choose, for those of you that won. But there's a lot of great things to choose from. So hopefully everybody. And it's also, it's not like they're an obscure company, but I think like Vintage Warmer's been around for a really long time. It's a super powerful tool, and it's stayed relevant, so I just thought and I use it all the time. So I just thought it'd be a good thing to kind of give them a little bit of love and profile in this, because they just have such a huge offering. So I hope those of you that get to choose, and those of you that don't get to choose, maybe you go check it out.
Yeah, definitely. I know Vance Powell featured Lottery in his last Start to Finish as well. That one's a really fun Leslie emulator and sounds insane. So really fun plugins in there. Cool. All right. Well, to start it off, we'll announce our third place winner. And so I don't know. Do you have any notes on specific mixes at all, Jacquire?
No, no, I'm sorry. I didn't make any specific notes. Sorry.
No, no worries. Yeah. Cool. We'll keep going through them, and
You did a
you
great
guys.
job. Everybody did a great job, but I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's about as best as I can bullshit my way through that.
It's like, oh, I should have led that question better. Awesome. Okay, well, on to second place. The second place winner is Analog House. Love your name. Congratulations. Second place. And we'll go right to the third one. And the third one is Clown, KLWN. So you are the first place winner. Congratulations.
Nice job, guys.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have to send you the link to all of the submissions too, Rich, so you can see what it's like to have 300 people mix your song.
Would love that.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So I'm gonna show you guys now the mix-up window, and hold on here. So this will be, and sorry, you guys won't see this in our Zoom call, but so this is the mix-up player for the top 10 mixes, and so you've got your player at the top, and then as you scroll down, you've got all top 10 winners here. So starting from the top, so KLWN, congrats, first place. Amerik Desmats, and then Analog House, and then we have honorable mentions for Ian 72, Rune S, Memento, L Meter, Aurelia Garasas, Lights Out at 12, and Rick Mix. So congratulations, guys. Everybody did really awesome, and that was a blast. Cool. Is there anything else you want to add to the mixes, Jacquire?
I don't think so. No, I think
Yeah.
I think some of these thoughts will come when Rich and Colton and I can sort of start to engage some of the answers. I think that'll probably open up and unpack some thoughts for us.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So Colton, I have a question for you that I think is an interesting part of this. So you guys were, when we did the start to finish, you guys were a little more than midway through the record, right?
Yeah, we're damn near the end of at least the tracking portion of the record. I think that was our last song we tracked, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So one of the challenges, I imagine, that was all tracked at Jacquire's studio, the LBT in Nashville, and then you guys had this extra song that we were going to do on the video, which we wanted to do at Flux in New York. So I'd love to hear about some of the things that you guys discussed, just in terms of keeping consistency and the deciding to do this in a different room, what some of the challenges were for that, moving studios.
I mean, we definitely had a talk beforehand going in of what Flux had on hand that was similar to what we were using mic wise and gear wise. And then if we couldn't find something like that, we were looking for a good alternative or something that would fit the song, at least for like our setup and like getting rolling. And then, man, once you're in the room, it's kind of like for me personally, I was really relying on Tom, the Flux assistant, and Fab being around, and like, what's best here, like, are things sounding like you normally sound in this control room too? Because you're going into a new space that you've never worked in, and you think you're getting the right sound, but for those of us that have done this enough times, you've maybe been tricked by a control room or two, so you just kind of know the right questions to ask and the right people to ask. And then obviously having the team that we had there with Danny and Jacquire leading us, it's like you just trust each other and sort of go with the flow here. But it was definitely a concern for me of being like, oh man, like this is definitely like a this is going to be a challenge, which it was a really fun challenge, especially doing it on camera, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm really proud of how it turned out, and I had a real blast doing it. I thought it was going to be really, really challenging, and it was, but I ended up having like so much more fun than I expected to. You know, with the pressure filled situation, you kind of feel like, oh boy, this could be really heavy, but it was great experience all around.
Yeah, awesome. Jacquire, this is something that you've obviously done one or two times before, is, you know, switching control rooms and working in different studios. Do you have anything to add to the kind of that topic and things to look out for when you're doing that?
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, we at my studio, you know, my big speakers here are Amphions, but we use KRK Rocket 5. So we made sure that we had a pair of Rocket 5s on hand. It's like, you know, easy to get there. It's at least, you know, the focals that, you know, which Colton and I, neither of us had spent a lot of time on focals, but we really like them. And we definitely talked about that, you know, but we made sure that we had a pair of speakers there that we were very familiar with and that we could kind of listen to it at sort of a lower level where you're not bringing in too much influence of the room. And kind of like, okay, well, does this feel, you know, you know, sort of like what we expect? And like Colton alluded to, it's good to ask the people, you know, what they think of, that work in the room. You know, I think don't misunderstand what Colton said about being tricked by a control room. It's not that a control room is necessarily bad; it's just different, right? And so it changes your frame of reference. So you know, asking questions, trusting the people that are there to help you. And having familiar set of speakers, you know, is key, you know. And then maybe Rich can also elaborate on this. Also, part of it is, you know, we purposely chose to do. I mean, Keep the Light On the writing was sort of finished when we were making the record here, close to Nashville. But we purposely sort of did the whole start to finish series in New York after we tracked the rest of the record. So we had, you know, so we had worked through all of our, you know, making an album together, like our communication, defining what our sound was. So it was very clear so that, I mean, in this, because it is a pressure situation to be on camera in a different studio and all these things, you know, and also we were tired from, you know, we had a little bit of a break, but we were also, you know, it's just like, you get fatigued and you lose a little perspective. So it's just like, you know, having each other to rely on as well. And at the tail end of our process, you know, I think we made a good call by doing it that way. You know, and then, you know, and this is maybe where Rich can pick up a little bit too, is that, you know, it's the same players, they brought their gear, you know, so it's just like, really, you know, it's just like, we know what our process is. We kind of know what our target is, and it's the guys, it's the same source, you know, so really just kind of navigating connecting the two things. So, you know, that's kind of maybe where I turn it over to Rich if he had anything to add, you know, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variables going into this song. I think one of them that hasn't been mentioned is that it was a pretty much brand new song for us. Actually, the inspiration for the song was written when we were living down in Nashville. I'd been away from my fiance for quite a long time. Felt inspired by that. Wrote a new song. I said, "Hey, Jacquire, I have this new song. Do you think it's any good? Do you think it's got legs for the record?" And we would randomly add it, and then that's where this kind of Puremix opportunity came up. And so we had to learn the song, write the song down there while recording a record, and then do a scratch recording of it, and then be in this kind of pressure-filled situation to do it. And I think what's really amazing is that just even with those challenges, they were able to get it in a space that sonically fit the rest of the record, right? I mean, again, same source, same things, but completely different room. I think we ended up using different amps for this particular recording as well than we did in the previous recordings, but still we're able to get it in a similar space, which I think just proves that, like, with the right know-how, with the right plugins, with the right material and gear, and with time and knowledge, you're able to kind of converge those two gaps or close those gaps a little bit closer. So it was a really incredible process for sure. Was happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Yeah, there were the entire way along. There's comment fields on all the videos, and people were really taken back by your vocals, Rich. So kudos to you
thanks.
on that. And yeah,
Thanks.
lots of
Appreciate
compliments
it
from the community there.
Appreciate that very much.
Rich is an incredible singer. Colin can verify this too, but like Rich sings so frigging loud. I mean, his voice is so huge and projects. It's just like, it's like, you know, he can stand back from the mic. I mean, it's unusual, like the volume and just like sound pressure level that, you know, it's such an incredible vocalist, but like, it's like holy, it's like, whoa, man, turn the mic pre down. It's just like blowing everything up. it was pretty.
I'm
fun.
a very emotional singer. I am. The adrenaline gets me every time. I think that's because I love it so much. Yeah.
And one of the videos that I remember even seeing it and being like, holy, is that how we were doing it? Because he was like this far back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot. He's so loud.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, actually, Rich, while we kind of got you on the mic here, this is a part of a bigger record, and you guys are starting to roll out some material and stuff. I'd love to take a minute and just talk about what Oak and Ash is up to and about the record and what's happening. So.
Well, it's been a significantly challenging year for every single person on this call and ourselves included. I mean, especially in the music world, it's kind of torn us away from each other for a while. You know, we were just getting ready to release these songs. We had a PR plan for them, and that kind of got just turned upside down. So at the moment, we're really just excited we're back together. We've been practicing actively. We have some shows on the books. We've released 2 of the songs on the record, including Keep the Light On, which has been doing really well. And we're proud of that. And we have another song set to release from the record on the 25th of June, which is on the same day as our first show back together. So just it feels good to get some momentum back under us a little bit. I'm sure every musician and producer and mix engineer alike on this call can appreciate that. And we're just looking forward to getting these songs out there. You know, I mean, at some point, it doesn't matter as much how well they do, and you're just kind of proud of the material, and we just want to have it for people to listen to, you know, and then start playing the songs, which is the most important part. So just excited to be back together and have some opportunities to play coming up shortly.
Yeah, that's great. What is the name of the record?
We don't have a name for the record yet. Really, we've been releasing them as singles and just kind of taking our time with it. We're not rushing. You know, the reality is that people aren't asking us for a record at the moment. You know, we're in a unique situation. And I think we just want to take our time releasing the songs, see how they do, spend time on the individual singles and get people familiar with it and not just throw 11 songs at everybody. I mean, that's the strategy at the moment. So we're kind of sitting on it at the moment. We have some ideas and thoughts for names and things like that, but that'll come in the future, probably later this year, you know, after we've released a couple more singles.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, there's a whole artist perspective. What were some of your favorite things that maybe were a little bit different than previous recording experiences when you were working with Jacquire and Colton?
Well, I mean, there's so many things. I think that one thing that sticks out to me is how comfortable Jacquire and Colton and the rest of the crew kind of immediately made us. Like I'll give you one example. There are some beautiful microphones in the room. I remember when I walked in for the first time that they put me on some gorgeous condensers that I probably couldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, you know, by myself, right? And immediately I started singing, and I just wasn't quite comfortable. We weren't hitting the notes. I just wasn't there. And Jacquire came in and he said, you know, what can we do to make you more comfortable? What do you sing on at home? You know, what was what I heard? What were the demos that you heard? And I said, I sing on an SM7B. So the whole record's on an SM7B. I mean, we changed the microphone immediately from probably a gorgeous U87 or something like that to an SM7B. And I think just that level of like, they just don't have any ego about them in terms of the gear that they use. They just want it to sound good, and they want you to feel good playing it. I mean, and ultimately that is what gets it to sound good. You know, all the gear in the world can't get a good performance out of somebody. And I think that that's what Experience and Jacquire and Colton have under them that I really appreciated more than anything, was just a knowledge and a comfortability with saying, play what makes you sound comfortable. And from there, we'll get it to sound the way we want to. And so that was one thing that really stuck out to me. And also just like it required a certain level of patience on their end as well, to not want to kill us every 3 seconds for not having the right work ethic, right? It takes a certain amount of work ethic in there to be able to execute the songs, to have a plan, to execute that plan, and not waste everyone's time, right? I mean, because ultimately time is money, and that all matters in the scheme of things. So, you know, it was a learning experience for us, for sure, to work with someone, you know, as professional as Jacquire is, to kind of build, you know, on our professionalism and how we work together as a band to really get a final product. So that was one thing. And then third, it was just, you know, just an absolute incredible experience. We made, you know, lifelong friends out of these guys, and just, you know, learned from them immensely on, you know, how to be professional musicians, but also, you know, how to really fall in love with our own sound and kind of hone our own sound. And yeah, it was just an incredible experience all the way around.
Awesome. Yeah. About how long were you guys in Nashville?
2 months we were there. Yeah, 2 months.
Amazing. Was it 7 days a week for you guys, or?
It was 5, right, Jacquire? Right?
Yeah,
4 or 5 days a week.
I feel like it's very important to, you know, I don't work the weekends unless it's, you know, it's sort of what some circumstance dictates it. It's very healthy to try and work, you know, show up at some appropriate time of the morning. You know, it's like you have to consider some people's, you know, sleeping habits and, you know, what's going on, and then sort of work to a, you know, reasonable hour of the day. I mean, a lot of times we were wrapping up around a normal sort of dinner time, late dinner time. So it's like kind of like, you know, and it's you know, early on when there's some editing to do and some catch up work to do as we're recording, you know, Colton, Danny, and I'd have to come in a bit ahead of the band. But, you know, I think in general that you guys showed up probably around 11, 6 or 7, we were kind of done. Take the weekends off, you know, it's like, it's time for everybody to kind of like rest, get a little perspective, sort of see their significant others, you know, for the guys to be able to like get out and explore Nashville and feel like, you know, that they were inspired by the environment and the time. So, you know, just kind of a nice, you know, work balance. I think it's really important. And it makes you makes you pay attention and be more efficient when you're there, when you show up and you're there to work. And it's just important to just kind of have those boundaries, you know, because it can be, you know, and this is happened to me, you know, ages ago when I was more starting out. And it's just like basically live at the studio, and there's a part of that, you know, there's a part of living your passion and going at it like that is an essential part of your journey. But then once you kind of get to a place where you're in a process and you're engaging other people, it's like it's nice to have the structure, because just to be able to go home and participate in the other parts of your life, because the other parts of your life are very important in balancing and enriching the, you know, the music making part of your life. So it's like they play off of each other, and feeling rested and having perspective is like super important. So that's generally our schedule that we kept, kind of a Monday through Friday thing. And we sometimes we'd have to go have a beer afterwards, or a bite to eat, or we wouldn't, you know, just depending on how everybody was feeling. So that's kind of the best way to work, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's important to have input, not just all output. So yeah. It's a good little pun there.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Dad jokes are my new thing. Awesome. Okay, so guys, we're getting close to doing some Q&A stuff. So if you're in Crowdcast, there's a ask a question section below the video. Click on that and submit your questions. You can also upvote each other's questions. So if you see one that you like from another user, upvote that and we'll be sure to get to it. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and drop those in the chat and we'll watch for that as well. Okay, so I have another question, sort of about the the moments leading up to the record production and to starting out the record in Nashville. One, there's obviously a whole dance that happens between a band choosing a producer and the whole starting out of that and figuring out the business side of that. And then aside, on your side, Jacquire, any sort of discussions that happen with your team and, how are we going to prepare for this project? Rich, would you like to talk about, as a band, searching for a producer to make your next
Sure.
record and all that?
Sure. We looked at it. We looked at a bunch. Honestly, Jacquire, I had mentioned to our managers kind of early on that that would be my goal producer. I'm a huge fan of the James Bay record he did. I'm a huge fan of the Kings of Leon stuff that he's done, and many more. And it was kind of a reach. Like, honestly, I don't think this guy's ever going to talk to us, but you might as well reach out and give it a shot. I had other producers that I had looked at, but I was mostly keen on him. And our managers reached out, and I think just got lucky enough that he was, he could speak to it better, but I think was just interested in the music and the songs that I had written. And we just got lucky enough that he was, kind enough to reach out and source a call with me. And I think we built good rapport on our first phone call, and we kind of talked about the music and my goals for the music and what I was thinking. And also he gave me some notes on things that would need to improve about the songs as well. And then, once we had kind of selected each other, really, I'll put it as that, we got to changing the demos that I created, right? I had to rewrite more songs. I had to change some of songs that we had been playing for years at some point, right? Based on some of the notes that he had given me. And so that was also an incredible part of the process. He was very involved, and we both were for months on end in terms of restructuring the songs, rewriting the songs, making sure they were the best they could be. Whether that's lyric changes, melody changes, shortening tunes, lengthening tunes, the whole thing, right? Writing new music. And so we were in constant communication until we got to a point where we felt, okay, here's our 10 songs that we feel really good about. We're ready to make a record. And at that point, it became kind of game time for the band and I to start to more intimately kind of learn these songs the way that we had written them, right? And that was a whole nother process. And preparing, it was like preparing for the biggest show of our lives, really, making sure that we were ready by the time we showed up to really play them. So it was a really incredible process. And we just got, honestly, I'll just consider myself extremely lucky that, he took a chance on us and liked the music enough to be able to work with us. So yeah, that's kind of how it went down.
Awesome.
Thank you, Rich. You're very, very, I'm honored that we work together, and you're very, very deserving artist. So.
No, thank you.
So yeah, thank you. Appreciate what you said.
Amazing.
I mean, Mark, I could add to that if you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah. So it, honestly, I mean, just to kind of let people know, I mean, I get a lot of inquiries, and there's a pretty decent amount of it that is not something I'm interested in. I'll just put it that way. But it's just like, Rich and the guys are obviously very talented, and I heard something there, and spoke to to the band's management, and it's like, well, and it's all kind of always this way for me. Like if it's just like, if I hear something that I feel like, I hear something that I like, that I feel like I can offer something to, it's like, if I'm intrigued by the music, is it an opportunity, because we have to be selective. At a certain point, you have to be selective because you can't do it all. You have to realize that about yourself, which I'm still probably trying to learn a bit. But it's just like, okay, well, the next step is, let's get me on the phone with the band or whoever, Rich in this case, and let's talk. Let's see how we communicate as humans. Like, do we have enough? Do we have good dialogue? Can we have good rapport? How does it feel? Because it's just as important to me. Ultimately, appreciate what Rich said. Put me at the top of his list, but at the end of the day, it's just like, I need to make a decision for myself. But even though Rich thinks he may want to work with me, I want to make sure that in giving myself an opportunity to understand if this is someone I want to spend time with, is I give him or the band the artist an equal opportunity to make sure that they really want to choose me, because I want, because, not just in this bubble of like, oh, because this person did this or that. It's like, no, actually talk to me. And it's just like, do you think what I have to say is relatable to you? It strikes a chord with you, resonates, whatever. Because if you do choose me, I want you to be invested in your choice. I want you to show up and feel like, because we need to give of ourselves, Colton included. We need to give of ourselves in a creative environment to actually do something of importance. And by that I mean importance to ourselves. It's just like, I do not want to show up and work on music that I do not like. I do not want to show up and work on music or work with artists that I do not want to be in the room with. So that's an important part of it. So yeah, we had a great first interaction, and then that led to sharing more music, talking about the music, some of the stuff Rich talked about. And I at this point, I do not want to fail to mention my good friend Spencer Thompson, who is a constant collaborator of mine. Spencer is incredibly gifted musician. He's in Moon Taxi, and once Rich and I kind of got past the revision writing, arranging things, and we're kind of getting more on the same page and kind of getting to the point where we had this collection of songs. So like then I engaged Spencer to sort of help me execute some amazing pre-production and the programming, and then sort of take that back to Rich and the guys. It's like, well, what do you think of this? It's like, okay, so we got the songs, we got the songs selected, we got them kind of worked up to a place where I feel like we're ready to make records of them. Now, what do you think of this input, this influence? Like, this is part of the foundation. So I mean, gosh, Rich and I mean, it was months and months that we went back and forth. I have a busy schedule. What I was asking him to do takes real time and real effort. Because it's not, it's just like this stuff has to come from within. So it's just like you don't just necessarily flip a switch. So it was good. It was a good building up process, and then when we got the demos, I could share them with Colton. It's like, hey man, this is what we're going to get into. And this is what Spencer's doing. And so, then Colton and I can start having conversations about like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to bring these things together, make it sound, how are we going to make it sound? So we can kind of spitball it off of each other, so that when we all come together, that we have built a plan, we have some idea of what the structure is, so that, because for me, and Colton can probably speak to this a little bit from his point of view, that, you don't want to be over structured or rigid in planning and building an opportunity, but you do need to be prepared. And in because being prepared, there's so many moving parts in this endeavor, and there's so many ways that it can go, that you need to create, and everybody, when everybody shows up for day one, everybody's anxious. And it's just like everybody, and there's been so much buildup. There's anxiety, excitement, all of it. It's just like, so it's just like, it's nice to be able to put the structure in place, and that so you can be creative and you're not just totally making up the thing in the the heat of the moment. Because if you do that, I mean, certainly you want to create an environment where spontaneity can happen, but if it's completely by the seat of your pants, you're going to miss stuff too, and it's going to be hard at times. So maybe just let Colton expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, the preparation is such an important part in all of this, and it's like I like to, I don't remember where I heard this, but it's you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your lowest level of preparation in an instance of like pressure. So if you're not ready to, like, mentally, this might happen, or we might not, with the instance that Rich mentioned with the mic, if we're not ready to like throw up a mic really quick and strike while the iron's hot and while he's still like in the mode of singing, if it takes us 20 minutes to switch over a mic or a chain or whatever, we lose that vibe. So just being prepared is one of the biggest things going into a new session, because like Jacquire said, everyone's nervous. Everyone is nervous for different reasons. They're nervous because they're in the studio with their dream producer at his place on his turf, and they're making potentially a record that'll change their lives. And then we're nervous because we're making a record that could potentially change their lives. So that's a big burden for us to bear, and we all have to share the burden equally, and that they have to, as a band, show up and be ready to perform and execute, but we also have to be ready to execute on our end as well, and not miss those opportunities. Like Jacquire said, where if you're not ready, you can miss an opportunity. And I think back to, I can't remember which song it was, but I think maybe Jungle, where we were moving. It's a song on the record where we were moving extremely quickly, and the band was super inspired by what was going on, and we were just chucking mics and throwing amps out on the floor, and it was chaos. But because Danny, the assistant, and I were prepared and ready, I was like, I'll run interference. I just give me 2 minutes. You go take pictures, do the assistant duties so we can get back to the sound, because we're moving so quick. We may need to get back to this, but we also need to ride this wave, right? Because creativity comes in these waves where it can just hit all at once, and you may not get the exact take, but you might get the idea down that later we can come back to and refine. So it was one of those cases where we were on that momentum. I ran interference for a minute. We got what we needed. The next morning we came back. We're like, we might need to redo a couple of these things. And we're like, great. That's okay. We've got all the stuff. We've got it documented. We're ready to go. But
can you guys see this? This is the chaos, right? That he's talking about.
There you go.
It was just like we were just stacking amps, and we were just like, it sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. It was absolute chaos, but it was amazing, right?
Right.
I also want to add to that too. Like, I think a lot of people listening to this could think, okay, that's all of that preparation stifles the creativity of the artist, right? Like, just let them come in. A lot of producers probably would say, let them come in and let it just happen. Let the magic just happen. For me, all those months of preparations, that was the creativity, right? Like, it was like having other people hear the music that I was writing, change it to a degree, re-inspire me on the song again, practice with the band, get excited about it, go in, play out of new amps, and execute. That is the creativity. That's what makes great music is being prepared, but also having that artistic license to continually change the music until it's right. And that's what the preparation is for. And then secondly, I think if this for all like aspiring producers and stuff, I've worked with many producers in the past, and many of them, that I still work with to a degree, that say, hey, okay, you have a song, great, come in, it's $300 an hour. Great, we'll record you, right? That's a totally different level of expectation here when somebody takes the time to prepare, listen to the music, understand what they're about to record, and then at the very least give you notes on it. The level that you get out of that, the quality that you get out of that, I think the producer will be much happier with the product from that perspective and be proud of the product from that perspective. And also the artist can be much prouder of the outcome, knowing that they've really done all they can do to make it as good as possible. So I just want to encourage also other producers to take that methodology. I think it could be too often I see it's like, all right, just come and record and we'll record whatever you want, right? No, like respect yourself enough to listen to the music and make sure that you love what the recording is, right? Like, ultimately, and can invest your time and yourself into that to inspire the artist to have a really good performance. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's spot on.
One of my favorite things is discipline equals freedom. The more, like, it sounds counterintuitive, but the more disciplined you are and the more prepared you are, it allows for more freedom and more flexibility and just going in the moment instead of just flying by the seat of your pants and losing stuff, you know?
Yeah, playing catch up all the time is a difficult position to put yourself in.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, you can't be at your best. I think what the earlier quote that you gave us, Colton, is really good. You what is it? You fall to what?
You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your lowest level, or your, I guess maybe your highest level of preparation. But
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. Because you're not going to fall any, it's just like, yeah, the sky is the limit, but you're not going to execute at lower than,
yeah,
where you've prepared.
What happens when, if the band's breathing down your neck, they're upset that, or like there's this high pressure situation, your back of your net's hot, you're sweating, like you don't just, it's not a movie. You don't just go, I got it, and like rise to the occasion. It's like, it's a lot of us, it affects you. The anxiety affects your choices, and you may not make the best choices. So the more prepared you are, the more scenarios you run through in your brain, or the more scenarios you've been through, the more you can go, oh, this is happening. I know this is what I need to do to fix this, and let's go. So
being in the studio with people, even if when they're super familiar to you, is never not awkward at some time. It just is, because you're even though maybe you know what the song is, you know how you want it to sound, you got the arrangement you want, you still have to pull it out of the air, and that just it doesn't just happen, and then sometimes that feels awkward, and you're called upon to have an opinion, or it's like the playback stops and it's like, okay, everybody knows that doesn't really quite feel exactly how we want it. Okay, so what the fuck do we do? And who's gonna, like, a lot of times, in the leadership role, it's just like, heat's on you, dude. Yeah. Like, you got to speak up. You got to move the meter. It's like, because, so it's just like, speaking from my own perspective, it's like, you just have to be, and then so you have to take a deep breath and fall back on that preparation and that experience. And so I think our points are definitely well made. This part of the conversation has been amazing, and I think we've all made excellent points, and I hope that that Rich's words for artists and producers is kind of taken, because it's coming from an artist. It's like, it's not Colton or I sort of saying, yeah, this is the way you got to be prepared, or what you should do. I think it's really good. But are we ready to get into the Q&A part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do that, I want to point out just a couple other pieces of content that we released around the series. So we did a number of blog articles just with excerpts from the series, specific things, everything from like Jacquire miking up drums a certain way, or talking about overdubs or vocal tuning or drum editing. There's a number of blogs that are available for free on the site. If you're not a member, you can go check those out. But specifically, I want to kind of highlight a blog that Colton specifically wrote for the site, called 5 Important Elements of Being an Assistant. And it talks a lot about, some of the things that you're touching on here with being prepared, and some different experiences that you've had. That it's one of my favorite blog articles on the site. So I just wanted to point that out and tell everybody to check it out. So yeah, there's also,
that's true. I forgot about it. I mean, honestly, it was not at the forefront of my mind, all the extra stuff that you guys extracted and presented, and the piece that you mentioned that Colton wrote, and Danny's. This is like just really good, thoughtful stuff, and I applaud the platform for providing the opportunity, and Colton and Danny for their contribution there as well. That's excellent stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Danny's blog is keeping a healthy mindset when making mistakes, and also a very, very important one.
Yeah, it totally ties into everything we're saying, because those awkward moments, they kind of create mistakes, or mistakes create awkward moments, and it's like, you gotta, it can't sink the ship, it's just gotta recover, and you gotta figure, and gotta keep the spirits high, and kind of keep creativity flowing. So yeah, that's also an excellent article.
Yeah. every once in a while, just when we're doing kind of internal Puremix meetings and everything, we come up with little character ideas for, you know, like if we were going to do like these spoof kind of videos or something like that. And one of them's the self-loathing engineer. Just every time like a patch is wrong or something like that, just freaking out. So yeah.
Know a
So
few of those.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah. Let's get to some Q&A. So we've got questions coming in on Crowdcast and YouTube. If you guys haven't got your questions in and you got something you want to ask the guys, do put it in there. We have a really unique opportunity here with having the artist in the room too. So kind of while you're thinking of questions, maybe think of some that we could take advantage of by having the actual artist on the Q&A session too. So we'll start off at the top of our Crowdcast questions where people get to upvote them. And our first question comes from Tom Dial. And Tom asks, when I was mixing the song for the contest, I decided to drop or significantly reduce the level of some elements. It seemed risky, but I was wondering how often this happens in the world of professional mixing.
That's a good question, Tom. I think, you know, and that could be, I guess that can be tricky. Like I mentioned earlier, I think you need, like creatively, you need to represent yourself, right? And if that's the vibe you're feeling, that's what you should do. But you do have to keep in mind that it was probably recorded for a reason. So, you know, it's like if you make the choice to really minimize it or make it more of a textural element, you know, you might want to check the rough mix. You might want to check the rough mix because you want to just, I mean, obviously the goal always when you're mixing is to beat the rough mix, but the rough mix is a representation of the way that they've been hearing it. And, you know, kind of like what it's an insight into what the thought process is, right? And the perspective and the presentation is trying to be built. So I would encourage you to make those choices, but understand what it is you're doing and be prepared for, you know, the risk might be worth the reward. They might be like, oh, wow, I never heard it that way. You know, it's just like, it might be really exciting. But I think more often than not, you're going to have to face a potential situation of like, what happened? So, you know, I definitely think we need to take artistic license in our creative endeavors. But, you know, use the rough mix as a way to check perspective, you know, and for myself, I can speak from experience. Like, if I felt something there was in a record that I was mixing that felt like it was underplayed in the rough mix and I was digging and I really wanted to showcase it, or the opposite, you know, before I, you know, just to kind of like hedge my bets a little bit, you know, I might call the artist up, I might send them a text and just sort of say, hey, just kind of wanted to run this by you, you know, just to kind of gauge and sort of like preempt the, you know, the first listen to the change, for me to get a sense of like, am I taking a good risk here? You know, what's the feeling? Should I send two mixes? Should I send the mix where that one element maybe that we're talking about is, you know, different than the rough mix presentation, and then just sort of send something that's maybe a little bit more towards what my interpretation of their thinking is. But you know, so that's kind of my answer for that question.
That's just to piggyback off that. Always, I mean, the rough is there for a reason. Like you have to be able to extract the things that are charming and give character to the rough, but obviously, like Jacquire said, you want to knock the rough stick in the dirt and like leave no question that your mix is better. But there are always elements of the rough that you should carry through. And if you completely, you know, this is something I struggled with for a long time as a young mixer. You get your ego involved and you're like, well, I'm going to just reshape this mix because I know what I'm doing. And you completely can reshift the focus or the perspective of the artist to where like it could objectively be better, but because they're so locked into the way the rough has been presented to them for so long that you just spun them around in the field and like took the blindfold off, and now they have to get their bearings again, and it's immediately not they just immediately will not like it generally, because you've taken too much artistic liberty. So you can take liberty, like Jacquire said, and be creative, and as you should with mixing is an artistic expression in itself, but you kind of almost have to find the moments in between the big gestures to do those things too. Like, and yeah, I think that was a really good point he made of always keep in mind what the rough is doing.
Guys, is that just one more thing to add here? Does that go back into liking and feeling some sort of passion for the projects that you hear and work on ultimately? Like if Jacquire, for example, if you didn't like the rough mixes that I sent you right to begin with, you probably wouldn't have been working on this project to start. So you kind of already sonically were digging what I was putting down. And from that perspective, I guess my expectations are, okay, this guy's got my best interest in heart, and we're going to sonically work together in the right place. I mean, how much do you think does that play into it? You know, ultimately, you know, maybe if you accept a project from someone that you're not digging as much, and then you find yourself making these drastic changes, you feel that has anything to do with it?
You know, that is a very interesting question, Rich. I would say, you know, because, you know, and honestly, you know, if I had my choice in terms of like the songs I'm being shown for a record, I would not want them to be production demos. I would want them to just be simple song documents, work tapes, because, you know, because sometimes it creates a situation where, you know, you would have lived with your versions of the songs for a very long time, and you know, you're coming to me because you're wanting a recorded record making interpretation of them. So, you know, so to me, it doesn't matter as much. Now, obviously, if there's something in it that just, I'm not necessarily listening. When I listen to like the stuff that you sent me, I wasn't really listening to the way you balanced, or the balance, or like the quality of the recording. I'm just listening to like what, you know, it's just like, what are the elements in this? What do the performances feel like? Do I think, you know, does the voice speak to me? You know, so I'm listening to those things. You know, I'm very good at like sort of separating myself in terms of like listening to demos of like, you know, I'm not listening to them like they're records. You know, it's just like I'm listening to them like, you know, it's just like, do I like the music? Does the music make me feel something? What are the elements here? How does it feel like people are performing? And that's kind of it for me. You know, it is, I guess subconsciously it is a reference. You know, if there was red flags in it, it probably would be a non-starter. But that's not so much about your work as a mixer, or you know, and you know, there's no comment on. I'm not really commenting on that, because I'm assuming that you're happy enough with it the way it represents your song, but you're coming to me for a purpose. So it's just like, okay, you know, it's just like, no judgment. It's just like, yeah, that's kind of my viewpoint on it.
Yep.
It's a good question though.
Yeah. Awesome. So our next question is from Omnigraph, and this one's for Rich. They ask, when you will play the song live on stage, will it be rearranged for some of the instruments alone, or will you use some pre-recorded parts or effects from the mix?
Yeah, we always, thanks for the question. We always use some sort of backing tracks. The production elements that Spencer was able to do primarily are those backing tracks, but we have rearranged them for live. 90% of our songs live are longer than they are on the record. This is one that's unique, where it's just right around that 3.5 minute mark. So it isn't significantly longer, but the intro is longer than it is on the record in some performances. So so what we do is we take the pre-recorded backing track, we elongate it to our live performance, or the layout of the live performance that we want to have, and then we go from there. But the rest of the melodies, the feel of the song, etc., stays the same. Sometimes as well, just in terms of comfortability, sometimes we choose higher keys for the songs when we record them for excitement purposes, and then we choose to lower the song live for comfortability, you know, and just performance and longevity of performances. This is one of those songs. I mean, the whole time, as you can see, like I'm pretty much belting the song. And in a recording studio, that's comfortable for me. Live, if I have to perform day after day after day, that's going to be pretty taxing. So this is one of the songs I think we dropped at a half step as well. So that's another consideration. And, Jacquire worked with me on particular songs where I knew that was going to be the case. And we dropped some of the backing tracks a half step as well. So hopefully that answers the question.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Our next question is from Bob, and he says, the arrangement is so strong in the song and all the songs I hear produced by Jacquire. What are some tips that you have, and what is your thought process when working on the song's arrangement?
Just is it kind of, I guess that's a good question. I think I'm going to take it as sort of like a general question, not just about this stuff. It's just, it's about engagement. It's like you want to keep the listener engaged. You want to, like, you want to tell a story, and it's not, I don't mean by telling a story, I don't necessarily mean that like lyrically tell a story, but you want to take the listener on a journey, and how you set the stage. I mean, sometimes the journey is kind of a little bit of a slow start, and you build, and you open new doors along the way. And then, you get, and then you kind of, things keep coming into the room. And then the end is sort of like a big gathering party, sometimes, you just bang and right out of the gate, it's a big celebration. And then it kind of like, you've got everybody at the party in the beginning of the song, and then you kind of break it down, and you sort of like do some character studies along the way. It just, for me, it's really kind of about engagement and interest, and then, sometimes in an arrangement you need to be strategic, it's just like, and I think we did this on a couple tunes. I'm not exactly remembering which ones we maybe, but I do know that on at least one or two tunes, it's like we took a first chorus and we cut it in half, because by the end of the tune, it's just like hearing that full chorus every time. It's not that it's not a great chorus, but it's just like, you want it to feel as exciting the last time you hear it, as you've been excited about at any point in the song. So it's like sometimes a good strategy, arrangement structure move is like, hey, let's cut the first chorus in half, or maybe let's not have, maybe if the chorus has a tag, or it's got like a little melodic, sort of section that sort of follows it up and finishes it. Maybe let's not have it after the first one. Let's maybe go back to the reintro so that we get to that second verse in a very familiar feeling of the way we got into the first verse. It's just like, and then so hey, let's save some of our gunpowder for the end. It's like, let's be strategic about it. But at the end of the day, it's just like, it's like, are we creating a journey that the artist feels like they are, so it's a balancing act. Are they getting to fully express their vision and expression of the song along the journey? And, on my end of it is like, am I engaged? Is the momentum, and that's not necessarily that it's not about tempo necessarily, because everything is a contextual and appropriate. It needs to be appropriate. So it's not necessarily about a tempo that's fast tempo. Tempo is insanely important, and so is key. But it's really like, whatever it is, it can be a slow, moody song, it can be very sparse. Whatever it is like, does the engagement and the emotion of it keep me hanging on and keep me renewed as every measure goes by, and so that's really what it's about. And I don't really have any, for me in particular, I don't really have any rules. And I think sometimes I get, through decades and genres of music, we have very predictable styles of arrangement. They're, arrangements are different, the range from the 70s are different than from the 60s and the 80s and 90s and so forth and so on. And then so also kind of like, so sometimes I think about that, like if a record I'm making now sort of reminds me, even if it's just in one section, reminds me of a 70s type of thing. Like, let's say the bridge kind of harmonically, inversion wise goes somewhere. It's like, oh, it makes me feel kind of 70s. Then it's like, okay, well, maybe I can borrow some sort of inspiration or structure from that to incorporate it in a more modern context so that it's a twist, you know, because honestly, I do get bored with where, you know, I was at a live show last night. A singer-songwriter was performing. Awesome song, awesome performance. But what I ended up feeling about 2/3 of the way through the song was, gosh, there's a lot of lyrics in this song. I don't think the singer has stopped singing. It's like, where's the music? And, you know, I think that's like, you know, it's like, you remember song, like think about songs from the 70s. It's like they front loaded the arrangement. It's like you get through the first 2 minutes of a song from the 70s, and you'd had most of the song, like the lyrical part of the song happen, and then it'd stretch out for another like several minutes where everybody, you know, like the band would take these like cool sections and you'd have solos, and eventually, like, you know, like in a jazz tune where you've got the head and the tail, there's the theme that's played at the top and the tail of like a jazz tune, you know. It's just like, and then the rest of it's just kind of this exploration, you know. I was just standing there thinking, it's like, this is a great song, this is a great artist, but it's just like, I'm really tired of this arrangement presentation. So
Jacquire and Colton are so good at this. I mean, just to add an artist perspective, I mean, so many times there's no rules, right? That no one, I didn't walk in and Jacquire was like, hey, this needs to be 3 minutes, right? Or sub 3 minutes or 3:30, right? Like so often you hear that from producers, just keep it sub 4, right? It probably will end up being there just naturally, but it was more about, do we need this part? Is this adding anything? You know, does it make me feel something? Is this too repetitive, right? Like, can I listen to this 100 times over and still like the song, right? Like ultimately that's the goal, right? To like have it played thousands and thousands of times without anyone getting bored of it. And if you keep that perspective where it's like, do I need this in the song? Does it actually do anything for the music? Then you'll come out with something really good. And forget about the rules, whether it needs to be 3:30. Some of the songs on the record are 4:30. You know, that's fine as long as it's actually engaging all the way through. And that's, they you know, these guys are just so good at that, you know, just understanding what's necessary and what's not. And yeah, and then they're also convincing the artist in the right way is another challenge. I mean, we won't even go there, but that's a whole different situation. I mean, you become emotionally connected to certain parts. You're like, no, this has to be in there. And you have to be able to explain that in a way that doesn't insult the person that's written it, which is a whole different talent. That's for another time. But
yeah,
Colton uses his combat training for that, I believe.
Yeah, he sure does.
Yeah. I would like to just sort of speak to one of the things that Jacquire says a lot, and I think is one of my favorite ways to look at it is the song eventually is going to start saying no, right? Especially, you know, especially when you already have the arrangement, you know, sort of nailed down and we're overdubbing, but you're maybe adding production elements and stuff. Eventually the song's going to start to push back and go like, okay, nope, this doesn't work. Okay, well, maybe we still need this. Nope. Listen to the song and listen to what it's telling you and just stop. Maybe come back, you know, if you really feel like it needs something later, maybe come back to it, but just listen to the song because eventually the song's going to start to tell you no. And I think that's one of the most important things in that. And that's one of my favorite sort of Jacquireisms with that in mind of just, you know, listen to the song when it tells you so. And you can't be scared to kill your babies.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you got to fire. You got every idea is a good idea because it brings about creative thinking.
Yeah.
And you know, and almost everything should be attempted or tried or given a little bit of space. You know, because I mean, there's lots of ideas that get thrown around that don't make the final cut. But if you don't have an environment where it feels like any idea could be a good idea, then you're never going to get the most out of it. Because I mean, so many times, you know, myself or someone else will kind of propose something, and it's like, well, okay, that's not quite it. But it's like, but wait a minute, it leads us somewhere else. That's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that if we hadn't tried that, you know, not so good idea first. So, you know, it really is about being tuned into each other. I mean, it's good. This all ties in everything that we've said so far. Is just like being in the moment, being prepared to be in the moment, and being in a structure where any idea can be tried with some expediency. You know, so that we can, you know, because I'm like, another thing I'm always saying is just like, I want to work at the speed of creativity. You know, I want to work at the speed of creativity, and you have to be set up to do that. You know, it's just like, if you've got, every time you have an idea, you got to go chase down a microphone and put it on a stand and get a cable, or, you know, whatever it is. It's just like, God, it's just so fatiguing, and it just busts the vibe. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And there's even more ways to expand on that. I mean, Colton, with, you know, everything that you guys do to be prepared, and I think we've discussed it at pretty good length in like the articles and everything, and on other live streams that we've done. But that's something that this whole thing, it's really fun from my perspective as the, you know, the content manager for this whole thing. I had, you know, the task of watching this thing up to 3 times, because I watch it at different stages and
Thank
keep
you,
seeing
Mark.
it and everything, right? So I picked up a lot of stuff from it. But that was, you know, what you guys just discussed about trying every idea, and also just, you know, getting to be in the room on the shoot and observing you, Jacquire, and some of the other projects that we've done as well. That's one thing that really stood out, is how everybody, you have a way of making everybody in the room feel heard, even if it's something that maybe you can almost tell in your face, like, oh, he might not believe in that idea, but he's definitely letting the person explore it. And I think that there are some moments in the series where, actually, in particular, I think the baritone guitar moment kind of sticks out on that one, where Chris had an idea that he wanted to do on a baritone guitar, and you guys were about to move on, and you were like, well, if you have something in your mind that you want to play right now, let's go for it. And he's like, I do actually. And then he went ahead and did it, and it wound up being a really cool part, and everybody in the room was like, oh yeah, that's great, or whatever. But it was definitely you telling yourself, let him explore that in that moment.
You're absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. I hadn't remembered that, but now that you describe it, it's just like I'm there, feeling that feeling, and yeah, I mean, you know, it's just like, I know. Listen, I have it's like, I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and my face most of the time tells you kind of what's going on inside. Unfortunately, I do not have a poker face, but I think, but I try to demonstrate. Yeah, just, you know, I think even though my face may betray the moment a little bit, I think everybody understands where my heart's at, you know, having spent time with me, and that, you know, it's just like, I want to agree with you, even though my knee-jerk reaction may be like, no, we're not doing that. but you know, it's just like, but I also know the value, and like what I just explained, it's just like, maybe that's not a good idea, but I know that it could be the doorway to something that we would unforeseen, that actually elevates it to a place that we couldn't have thought of or dreamed of before. So it's just like, hey, you know, there are no rules. It just is like, you got to call a timeout when you're just like wallowing in unproductivity, and you're just chasing something that's just, you know, it just seems futile. Then it's just like, okay, all right, you know, enough's enough.
Yeah. I'd like to point out that that's also a really good way for the artist to discover on their own that it's a bad idea, instead of you having to tell them.
Absolutely.
Because
I was just going to say, half of the time that we did that during the record, it was mostly, I mean, Chris works in that way. Like you can't tell him that it's a bad idea. He needs to figure it out for himself. And you have to understand who you're working with. You know what I mean? And this is something that these guys did really well. It's like, I think, to Colton's point, half of the time we nixed, and, you know, most of the stuff we tried that they weren't going to like. They're going to be right. I mean, Jacquire and Colton were right 95% of the time. We just had to figure it out for ourselves.
Yeah. The thing is, it's like, it's more important that you know, I give Rich the opportunity to try something, and for him to know for himself that, like, nah, it's not, to let the song tell him that it's not a good idea, not just me, just me.
Fine too, because it's gonna, if you just shut it down right away, that idea is like a little worm that just swims around in the brain. Like,
what if we would have done it?
I need to know.
And it builds trust. It's just like, okay, you know, Jacquire, you know, I trust that he has my best interest in mind because he's going to let me do this. He's going to let me try it. And, you know, but the thing is like sometimes when that 5% happens, like Rich, let's just use the 5% example. And I know 100% that that's just not worth spending time on. The 5% of the time that I might need to speak up and say, no, we're not doing that. As just like Richard, I would probably say 9 times out of 10 to be like, okay, man, I trust what you're telling me. I trust what you're telling me. Let's move on. And it wouldn't have that worm in the digging around in the brain. It'd just be like, okay.
That happens a lot in the studio too, because there are too many freaking options for a musician, right? It's like, let's try this snare. Let's try another snare. Let's try a tom. Let's try that amp. Let's try this amp. Let's try. It's like, whoa, you know, take a chill pill. Everyone calm down. It's all, you know, it all sounds good as it is. Let's just move on, right? Like, let's move on to the next thing and not try a billion different things that aren't really going to make any difference. I think we got this phrase. I'll end on this. I think we got this phrase from Jacquire, and we continue to use it today. I think he said, pack your patience. And we use it. We use it today. Every single day we talk to each other. We use it. I have it on my arm, actually. It's like, pack your patience, because it's so, I mean, there's nothing more true, you know, and he also says, find the truth, which is also, you know, we use that as well. It's like, and those two things are very, very true and appropriate for this question.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you could almost go down the line of, you know, be somewhat like a Back to the Future time travel thing where, you know, well, if we didn't try that idea, would we have arrived at this spot, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. You guys have more records to make and more songs to write. So, let's maybe do,
let's do some more. Let's the three of us, let's be much quicker. I mean, because we haven't really answered that many questions,
right.
And I would like to answer more questions. We don't necessarily all three have to speak on anything. And if we do whatever we say, let's just try to be a little bit more to the point, unless, you know, there's some really specific ground to cover. But I'd like to answer more questions. Yes, we do have to be sensitive of everyone's time, but let's get on a rapid fire.
Great.
I like it.
Okay, cool. All right. So our next question is from John F. And he says, as a mixer, our job is to create the landscape for the songs as well as stay true to the artist's vision, ego, etc. And each song has some element or elements that makes the song, and it's not always obvious or hidden or obscured. How do you find that element? And if it's not apparent, how do you know what to do if what you think is the key element, but the artist does not agree?
Colton?
My perspective on this is, if it's kind of an innate thing, you could chalk it up to like your aptitude towards mixing, or maybe your talent towards mixing. Like, you can have the skill set to know what to do and how to make things sound good, but a lot of that is just instinct, to me at least, and knowing what to mine and what's important in this arrangement or this song, or what to present. And it's a lot of just failing. Like, you're going to learn the most because you did the mix wrong and they said nope, and you either go back to the drawing board or you lose the client. So that's to keep it quick.
Yeah, I mean, I would, you know, it's kind of like, it's almost not something that you can say answer specifically. It is, and that's why you should take creative license, and you will learn from the responses you get. But you do have to create your own space. So you have to develop your sensibility and your talent, that innate sort of responsive personality towards the music. And you're not going to be right for everybody. And you have to realize that I've gotten fired from gigs from this. And it's not that sonically I made a bad mix. I just didn't make choices that resonated. I made choices that resonated with me. So that's all you can do. And that, you know, that's really hard to quantify. There is no script. It's just you follow your intuition and learn from the results, good and bad.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. Rich, anything to add from the artist side about that? You know, ever get mixes back that were just completely left field of what you thought was going to happen? Or
I will just say, hire the right person, and you need to trust them, right? Ultimately, you can go back and forth on a mix a million times. I think I drove Jacquire crazy in the end, but you have to just try to be trusting that you hired the right person, their ears, you know, and just be happy with it eventually. at some point you just have to be happy with it and move on. You know, that's.
I don't recall being driven crazy. I don't recall that.
I
don't recall
well,
that much back. I don't recall that much back and forth.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't. I mean, again, hire the right person. I mean, the first mix Jacquire sent, I mean, I was through the roof about it, and then you get really nitpicky, and you're like, okay, but this guitar could just be slightly louder, and like those are the things you eventually you just have to like push aside and just trust the person that they've mixed it right, and you need to stop hearing individual parts and just listen to the music and make sure it just makes you feel the right way. That's it.
That is a very key statement there. Take your mind out of the experience of all the individual pieces. You know, on the other end, on the receiving end of a mix, try to step back from it and just listen to it the way you listen to other music. You know, take yourself out of the experience and just try to just listen to it as music. Does this move me? Does this feel like the emotion that I want? You know, sometimes it's specific. I mean, obviously the sum is of the parts, but, you know, try to remove yourself from that to have perspective. I also would recommend, I always try to, if at all possible, take a decent amount of time away from a conclusion of a production recording process before I start mixing, because I need to forget. I need to kind of get some distance so that when I re-engage it, you know, I mean, it's obviously very familiar, but that I have renewed perspective, you know, and the things that I've been thinking about while I'm away from it are clear in my response to what it is. So.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Moving right along. Our next question is from Owen Phillips. And Owen says, first off, thank you so much for doing this. When starting out as a young producer and/or engineer, would you say that real life experience is one of the most important factors of becoming a well-rounded producer? How does one get better at this craft while still finding their way into the music industry?
Absolutely. The only way, I mean, you know, and Colton, I mean, I can speak to this from my own personal experience. And, you know, Colton and I worked together for like 6 years, you know, and Colton was not an inexperienced record maker when, you know, he showed up. But, you know, it's just like, you just learn from reps, you know, experience. It's just time. It's just time of being in different environments and working on many records. Because it's, you know, it's always a similar sort of construct and landscape and scene, but the characters change, the songs change, the genres change, the moods change, you know, so it's just like, the only way to get better at it is to, you know, to do it a lot. And when you're starting out, you're not only you're trying to gain experience, but you're trying to gain opportunity. So any opportunity is a good opportunity because it gains experience. Even, you know, obviously I'm not suggesting that you put yourself in a room with people that you don't want to be around, can't be around, music that you have absolutely no interest in, or you cannot give some part of, and I said this to Colton early on. It's just like, listen, we're not going to love, you know, it's like, we're not going to love every bit of music that we work on in terms of like our own personal taste, but hopefully we show up every day and there is something about the people and the effort and something in the music that we can attach ourselves to emotionally and to put our best foot forward. You know, so when you're starting out, it's really, you know, any opportunity is a good opportunity. You have to create opportunities. You need to find if you're an aspiring engineer producer, go find an aspiring, you know, Rich, and say, hey man, I want to help you record your, you know, it's just like you're writing songs, you know, it's like you're demoing songs. Can I help you do that? Because we'll grow together. We'll experience things together. And you never know, those relationships. I mean, you know, you might pull that artist along on your trajectory or vice versa, or you will meet other people. So just, you know, put yourself out there, do the work. You know, success breeds confidence. It does not teach us anything. Success is just a confirmation of our efforts. It does not teach us anything. When we don't get it right, you know, when we struggle, when we get fired, you know, or it's just like you know, it's like it takes like a bunch of revisions to get the mix right, or you got to re-record something. That's where we learn. That's where we learn, because it's just like that's what really teaches us. When you're successful, it's just saying, it's just like, yeah, pat on the back, nice job. It's like it gives you confidence so that you can go execute. But experience as the teacher. So go for any opportunity.
Josh Ogren in the chat says the 10,000 hour rule. So.
Yeah. I mean, just speaking from my experience, having come like still, you know, in many ways being on my journey to that, but having spent so much of it with Jacquire is, I mean, like you said, I wasn't completely inexperienced coming into that, but I sure as shit felt like it when I got there, because there are levels to this game, and you have to be on it, and you know, some people might look at my blog post or go through some of the preparation that Danny and I go through for a session and think maybe it's a little overkill, but it's a byproduct of having like feeling like you're getting your head kicked in for the first year of getting into this thing. Cause it's not only is it tough, like physically because you work long hours, but it's tough mentally because you're having to work long hours and being exhausted, but you're also having to like be mentally sharp and not fuck up, because if you do, you throw everything else off. And I've made a ton of mistakes, and that's why I put those systems in place to sort of help catch myself and know when and where I might mess up. And that's really the best teacher, because, you know, I had went through an audio program in college, and like knew the basics of things, and had worked at studios and stuff in Arizona before moving to Nashville, and then still like felt like starting from zero, because there's levels to the game, and if you want to be the best, you got to work with the best and compete. So that's where I've learned that's where the biggest leaps in my, you know, journey have come, or getting in and working. And I think nowadays when people ask me about audio, I get a lot of messages, and a lot of people that are huge fans of Jacquire will message me on Instagram, because they're like, they think I can, you know, somehow put them in touch, but they'll ask me questions and like, you know, what to do. And I'm like, look, don't waste money on audio program. You know, sorry, Full Sail and all those people, but it right now with the things that like Puremix is doing, like you get a Puremix subscription and just get in the freaking room, because that's where you're going to make the biggest strides. And then you're not going to come out with a heap of debt.
Yeah. Go buy, you know, some gear instead. Buy some basic tools that will, because I mean, that's one of the things, you know, having tools and experimenting is how you'll learn, you know. I mean, Rich is an accomplished recordist on his, you know, his own to get down his demos down. I mean, you are, man. I mean, it's not what we do, but that's not, but that doesn't minimize your accomplishment. You know, it's just like, you are able to get your ideas down in a very presentable way, you know, and it's just like, that's out there for everybody, you know. It's just like, spend a little bit of money on some tools and just get to work. And that's, you know, that's the way you're going to learn.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, Jacquire, you hit something really important there. I tell artists this a lot too, where, you know, a lot of artists will 100% depend on other people, other engineers. They'll come in with an acoustic guitar or whatever it is. And, you know, I think it's so important to have that skill set, even if you're not trying to be the next Jacquire King. It's important to develop that skill so that you can communicate when you are working with someone like Jacquire exactly what you want to, you know, accomplish in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Barrier to entry is not as high as everyone believes that it might be. It looks much more complex than it is. So it's scary, I think, for some musicians to just think like, oh, okay, I need all this stuff to be able to record. So in fact, it's the complete opposite today. The barrier to entry is so low to get such good quality out of it. And if you have any sort of interest level at all, it's just, quite frankly, it's fascinating, the whole thing, to have a Puremix mix subscription, to learn from Jacquire, to learn from people like this. It's so accessible on YouTube and so many other platforms. The information's there for you to grab if you want it, and then make decent sounding quality mixes that can get your thoughts across, right? Otherwise, it's super difficult to write good music because you're not actually conveying what's in your head, right? I mean, that's what's important for me, to get it to a level where at least I have an understanding where I can convey what's going on up here. You know what I mean? And show that to Colton and Jacquire and be like, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and not just send them something on my phone, you know, and that's what's important for me anyway. And it's super accessible for everyone out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what's possible. Okay, great. Let's try to close out a couple more here. So this next one comes in for Rich, and we touched on this one a little bit, but Rich, this is from Bill Filipiak. Thank you, Bill. He asks, what was the songwriting process like for this track? Did you write it all, and how did the band contribute?
Hey, Bill, thanks for the question, man. So we were in Nashville. Like I said, they were there for 2 months. It was the longest time I had been away from my fiance in quite a long time. We've been together for 10 plus years. We're about to get married. And, you know, I think I was just, quite frankly, I was missing her. I was feeling inspired by it, and had a melody in my head. And we had a lot of downtime in the studio where other folks, like, they were either working on mixes, other folks, you know, in the band were laying down their parts. And I think I just found some time in the garage and actually had a loop pedal and was just going back and forth on this thing. And I called Jacquire and I was like, hey, just take a listen to this melody and just see if you dig it. And he did. And so that gave me a little bit of fire to go home that night and kind of write a tune. And so it all got kind of written, for the most part, melody wise, and the chorus of it in about a night. And I came back the next day, and we just recorded a scratch track. I recorded a scratch track of what I was thinking, and then the band played to the scratch track and came up with their own thoughts, which is very much how we work most of the time. You know, I'll normally lead the process in terms of songwriting and come up with an idea, I'll call it, in terms of melody and what my part's going to sound like. And then they'll kind of come up with their own creative parts and thoughts to the song. And then we'll kind of come together ultimately and play it. And then we recut the scratch track. And then that's what we used and listened to until we were ready to record it, you know, at Flux in New York, eventually when we got back. So that was kind of what that process looked like.
Awesome. Okay. Next question. And you guys don't have to get into specifics at all on this. This was our most upvoted question recently here. So this is from Mark A. Ross. And he's asking, how did you work out financial compensation? Did you leave that to the financial people? So maybe meaning like managers. And then there's a part about that. Was there a great deal of compromise? So without like doing specific stuff, maybe just some like back and forth or conversation on how you guys deal with that part of the relationship happening at the beginning of it.
Sure. I mean, we don't necessarily have to, you know, we won't necessarily divulge numbers or you know, whatever percentages, but, you know, I manage myself. And, you know, the way the kind of whole thing went is it's like, Rich's management contacted me. I listened to the music. So I was interested in talking about the project. So then I go back to them and I said, okay, well, what are we working? It's like, yeah, I'm interested to pursue this. And I want to set up a call with Rich to see if we like each other, like I described before. But like, what are you thinking here? You know, it's just like, let's not waste each other's time, and let's not get Rich and I on the phone, you know, and kind of, you know, get more attached to the idea of working with each other until you tell me like, what resources do you have? Because it's like the reality of it is, it's like when people come to me or, you know, to someone that they want to work with, I mean, it's just like, I have my own studio. I need to make sure that, I need to make sure that my bills are paid. You know, it's just like, there isn't a cost of doing business. There are hard lines that need to, you know, otherwise, because I can't work at a loss, you know, and then I have to think of Colton and Danny. It's just like, you know, I need to make sure, do we have enough money to show up and do and execute what it is that they will hope and expect that we are able to do? Because if that's also part of the producing, is just like, that is part of my responsibility to make sure that I have the resources to be able to do things the way I feel like they need to be done, not extravagantly, just like appropriately, and deliver on the promise of why someone came to me. So, you know, had that conversation with the management, understood kind of like what sort of ballpark figure we were working with, you know, and me informing them of like what the costs were, what those like, where the lines are. And it's just like, you know, and for me, it's like, well, if you pay me this much, if you pay my retail asking price, great. You know, it's just like, I'm not going to ask you to be a partner in the endeavor. It's just like, you just buying me out, all good. This was not a conversation where they're coming in because it's independent. You know, this is not major label money. This is independent, self-funded project. So it's just like, okay, well, this is the reality. We can do it at that scale, but if that's the case, then I'm going to ask for ownership in the masters in the record. I'm just being, you know, totally transparent. And at a certain point, if I'm going to have to work on these songs, I'm going to ask for a portion of the publishing, a small portion, a respectful portion. But it's just like, if I'm going to do this at this reduced kind of cost plus place, I want to be a partner in it, in the outcome. And that's, you know, that's my reward for my risk. But then, you know, at the same point, a positive to that is like, I'm investing in this. It's just like, you know, it's just like, yes, it's a lot of money. But it's just like, you know, I'm sacrificing some of what my retail price would be to work on this because I want to. And now I'm an investor. You know, as I had that conversation with the management, and it's like, and, you know, and I think that they checked with Rich, and Rich was like, yeah, I think that we can, you know, entertain that. And it's like, okay, great. Let me talk to Rich. You know, it's just like, and in our initial conversation, we talked about that stuff because I'm not a person that's just like, you know, business is business. It's just like, if I'm going to be in the room with someone and I've asked for ownership in publishing of their song, or that, hey, we're going to co-own this record together, right? It's just like, I want to have that conversation with them. I want to be able to look them in the eye and you know, and have had a full conversation, complete honesty, complete transparency, because it's for me, it's part of being real. It's part of being a good person. It's part of being transparent. It's part of trust. It's like understanding what the investment is. Like, I know that this is a lot of money for you. You know, you're sacrificing to come up with the money to do this the way you want to do it. I'm coming off my price because I want to do this. You know, so that's kind of like, that's how it worked out. And, you know, and yes, I mean, we came to a place where there was enough. I mean, I did make some money, you know. It's just like, because I can't just totally work for spec. That doesn't work, because then to pay my bills, I'm paying it out of my pocket. The money has to come from somewhere. So, you know, we kind of agreed on like, okay, a little bit of publishing. We're going to share the master this way. These are the costs. You know, Colton makes this much every day, and you know, he can give us this preferred rate in this scenario. And I'll lower my studio rate, you know, by more than half. You know, Danny needs to make this money. We're going to need to eat, you guys. And that's just like, and there's other considerations. It's like, you guys are going to have a travel expense. We need to put that in the budget. That's a real cost that we need to consider. And just all, you know, all these things, and we kind of got to an agreed place, an agreed number. And yeah, we are co-owners in this. And you know, for me, because I represent myself, I don't have management anymore. You know, I have attorneys that sort of execute, you know, we agree what that is. And then the attorneys sort of draft it up, and, you know, so it's documented what everyone's expectation is. And I mean, I think that's as much as I could say about it. I mean, Rich, you probably have something you want to add from your side.
I'll be very brief. I'll be very brief about it. I mean, the only thing I'll add is that, you know, as artists, there's no roadmap to what's the right moves are. And as producers, as anything you do in life, there's no roadmap that someone can point you be, all right, this is the path to success. We can only try to make the right steps. And for us at this moment, for the band, you know, the decision came down to, we were wanting to make an investment in our career, you know, and play with the big boys in this space, and try to not only get a good sounding record, but have that experience together, work with a producer that had done it for other bands that we aspire to be, and ultimately get the most creativity out of ourselves as possible. You know, I think some folks can look at that and be like, okay, you could have done it yourself. But at this time, I have literally zero regrets about that process. And I think that the last thing I'll say is there are, like Colton said earlier, there are levels to the game. You know, I would have not spent this amount of money or given any sort of investment in my record to, you know, some of the other producers that I've worked with in the past, right? You know, and you need to understand and be comfortable with those investments. But I certainly don't regret it to any degree. And we've not yet seen the fruits of our labor there, but I'm confident that we will eventually. And at the very least, am extremely proud and always will be very proud of the record that we've made. And that ultimately is almost payment enough, you know, and even the relationship that we've built with Jacquire. So again, just understand what you're trying to get out of it. Be respectful of the people's time and what they're asking for. I don't think at any point in time were we ever, you know, haggling, you know, or at that point where we were just trying to haggle back and forth. I think we respected Jacquire's position, and I would do that with any other producer, and ultimately just come to a decision on that. So yeah, it ended up working out quite well.
Yeah. I want to add just a little bit to this. This is a topic I've been really into lately, and that's just Jacquire. You had so many great points in there that people should rewatch that part or this answer. Everything that we're doing in music, it is running a business, and that doesn't matter. Like if you're the artist, if you're the producer engineer, if you're the studio owner, these are all businesses, and it's definitely we have this weird thing in our industry where I don't think that people consider it to be that. And I especially see that in artists. Rich, you guys have a business. That business is called Oak and Ash, and your product is the record. And that record has a cost of production, and it has, all of those things. Like it's an
investment. We talk about it.
And,
we talk about it all the time, Mark, together. We have to remind ourselves that it is a business at the end of the day. And if you want to keep that perspective of success, whatever success means to you, you know, whether it's playing 100-person venue or playing Madison Square Garden, you know, you have to think about it in those terms. It might not be fun to think about it in those terms. You know, it's not fun to talk about money and how much you're going to pay somebody or vice versa, or if you're going to make something from it. But ultimately, all investments are gambles to some degree, and you have to gamble on yourself sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just the reality of the situation. We'll make it out of whatever hole, if that's the way you want to think about it on the other end, we'll figure it out. But ultimately, you have to, at some point, you think about it as a business, and you have to invest in yourself. And also on the flip side of things, as a producer or an artist, when you're giving your services away, you have to respect yourself enough and stick to whatever those costs might be, because it is a business. It's very important to maintain that perspective, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to move on to the next question because I could go on about that one all day. Hopefully, we get the opportunity to do that sometime. So. Okay, so we are at just about the 2-hour point. I think it'd probably be good if we do one more and then call it a day. So does that sound good with everybody?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
Great. So our next question and our final question is from Mike C. Mike says, I love the tune. I felt the guitar tones were pretty packed together, and I had the biggest challenge in sorting out their roles on, you know, the verse versus the chorus versus the bridge. Are there any observations, tips, or things to say about how folks sorted those out?
Oh, so I guess you're asking me how people sorted them out in terms of my perspective on the mix results. Is that kind of how I should interpret that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and also probably just some tips, because he felt like sorting out the space with the guitars. So maybe even just in a general sense of how you know.
Well, I'll answer I'll answer the beginning part of the question after. I'm gonna let Colton speak on give a little bit of his thoughts on how you sort these things out in a mix. I'll let him start with that.
I mean, for me, if I'm struggling, I mean, the mix of this song was so long ago, but I'll just talk in sort of the like broad strokes here. If I'm struggling differentiating verse from chorus, it's definitely make different EQ choices to help sort of differentiate. Maybe you know, maybe the chorus, instead of going for the big beefy low end on the guitar, you might need to cut a little bit out so you can have some room for the other stuff to sort of fill the space. Or you might need to sort of play with the width of the guitars. If you have some stereo elements in the verses, maybe have them a little bit more narrow, and then on the chorus you can widen them out. Or you can even use something like the SPL Vitalizer and use like the stereo expansion to help widen your guitars out. I use that quite often. Or you can even do some mid-side EQ, which I love to do on guitars with like FabFilter, especially. You can sort of open the top end up a little bit. You might be able to trim a little bit of the weird nose out of the middle and sort of make it feel a little bit wider without necessarily using those other tools. It's really just, it's so case dependent that you just have to kind of have your bag of tricks around to sort of pull, and you're not always going to find the right answer right away. You know, it might take, you know, well, this works for now. I'll move on. And then later on, as you get farther down your mix, you might be like, the guitars still don't maybe do what I want. Let's try a different approach. For me, I love FabFilter Pro Q3 is such an invaluable tool for things like this, where you're fighting other things, or you might have a little bit of buildup or something, especially the dynamic EQ, that you can dynamically control bands, or you can feed it a bus and have it triggered off of something else. For instance, on a recent mix, I had some strings that were getting in the way of the vocal. So I was able to overlay the vocal frequencies on the strings and see where they're masking and where they're overlaying on top of each other, and then take those frequencies that are in the way and duck them from the keyed off the vocal. So when the vocal's going, those frequencies are getting, you know, suppressed a little bit more. And when the vocal's gone, they come back, and you don't notice that they thin out or that they change, but it's all just sort of this trick, you know. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
I think that's, I mean, yeah, totally. I think and that's a cool way to end it, that tip. No, I mean, Colton said most of the things that I would say. I'd maybe reiterate that, you know, maybe you don't use the same guitar bus for all the guitars. Maybe you need a different guitar bus for your chorus. And, you know, the width aspect of it is important. You know, and this sort of starts to go towards some of my observations of the mixes. You know, like panning things hard, like don't be afraid to put a guitar only on one side. I mean, maybe you put a little bit of delay throw off of it, or room tone, so kind of like it doesn't feel like it's isolated over there, but that it is stretching and reaching into the texture of the mix. But you know, I think I did notice that some people were seeing. Well, I mean, it's hard to say exactly why they made the choices they made, but I you know, so using the word afraid maybe is too strong, but I'm going to use it anyways. It seemed like some people were afraid to be bold and go wide, you know, and it's just like, I'm just going to put this guitar over here and this other guitar is going to be over here. It's just like sometimes they're too narrow, and they were on top of each other, and it is kind of a fight, you know, and it just kind of, it muddles over the top of the voice and what the drums are trying to do. Is just like the landscape can be very wide, you know. It's like, you know, it's a personal thing for me, but I mean, I make very wide mixes, and it's not specifically every element has a wide stereo field. You know, it's just as like, it's just like I put characters on the edges, you know, and allow making sure that it's balanced in terms of interplay and, you know, activity, harmonics, rhythm, you know, so that there's this interesting conversation that spreads across the stereo field. But you know, there was some mixes where, you know, early in the song, you know, when it was just the one guitar, the guitar was in the middle and it would pop to the side. I mean, sometimes I do that move. That's not a thing for me. It's just like, I'd rather just, if that's where that character, you know, it's like, if I'm going to put the character over to the side, the character's going to be over there the whole time. It's just like, I might do something so that it doesn't feel isolated, like I mentioned before. But you know, I think overall, it's like, and I didn't listen to all 300 mixes, as we already made quite clear. But even at the 10 that I was focused on, and then and I did probably preview, I don't know, 30 other mixes, just like kind of spot checking, that, I guess I wish that some more bolder choices have been made. I think people get, when you're maybe, and I can't really necessarily speak to the level of people's experience per se, because I'm only judging the outcome. I mean, someone may be very inexperienced and had a great outcome, and someone may be very experienced and not such a great outcome, but I guess overall, I wish there had been more boldness in it, but that's to my taste. It does kind of, okay, so like in Colton's example, the strings and the voice were competing. I mean, if you have a string section, I mean, to give yourself the proper visual representation feeling of watching an orchestra or a quartet, you're standing back from them, right? They're not really, over here, so to present them, yeah, they kind of do need to be sort of from the middle out, and that the voice is right in the middle out, right? So they are on top of each other. So, so when you get into those situations, you do need to be able to carve out, and, it's very, very good example of how to maybe deal with something. But if you're not in a situation where you have to do that, I just encourage, like, picture yourself standing, you're at a show, you're at a venue, the band's on the stage, and you're up close. It's just like, that's where you want to be. You want to be just, well, not everybody's going to be right in front of you. I mean, the drums and the lead singer maybe, but then their amps are spread out, it's like, and the lead guitar player maybe, over here. It's like, create the theater that way, just, and
don't be afraid of the edges.
Yeah. Paint on the edges. And I don't know, Mark, do you feel like that that kind of captures the full answer for that?
Definitely. Yeah. And Mike actually said in the chat, thanks so much. That's exactly what I was after. Cheers.
Okay.
So yeah, great.
Okay.
Nailed it.
Thank you guys. Nailed it. Awesome.
Nailed it.
Guys, there's a question that popped up that I think is important, and maybe we could just spend 1 minute on it if you wouldn't mind. So
Sure.
very quickly. So John F says, I've surpassed the 10,000 hours 15 years ago, but still find myself struggling. Maybe it's internal or a confidence issue, but do you guys struggle with the same issues that you question your skill set or capabilities, even though you've surpassed most to get where you are? Is there a bit of advice to overcome that? Or do you just ignore it and persevere unscathed? So I feel like this one's an important one that a lot of people struggle
John,
with.
every day I question my ability, because because in this business, and you have to show up and you have to prove yourself every day, not only to yourself, but your client. I mean, outwardly, most importantly to your client. You have to, because every situation is different. Every day is a new day. It's a new opportunity. But yeah, sure, man. It's like, I like, if, at the end of the day, like, if you do like a real deep soul search, do I know that I can do it? Yes, because I have repeated success that breeds confidence, like I talked about earlier. But I'm human, and, and I want to do a good job, and I struggle sometimes. It's not, I mean, I'm really good at this, but it's not easy. It's like, I have to show up, and I have to care, and I have to work hard, and I have to be honest with myself. It's just like, it's like, I don't hit every pitch over the fence. It's like, I swing and miss a lot, so just being realistic with yourself, giving yourself a little bit of grace. If you feel like you're struggling, admit it and ask for help sometimes. I mean, Colton and I send mixes to each other. It's just like, if I feel like a little spun out, or I know that I'm not nailing it and I've lost a little bit of perspective. It's like, dude, it's like, can you just listen to this? And like, honestly, it only takes like 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, no, dude, you're fine. Or like, oh, what about this? And it's just like, or listen to it somewhere else. Take a break from it. I'm sorry that you feel like after 15 years and 10,000 hours, or 15 years past 10,000 hours, but it's just like, I'm quite sure, John, that you have the skills to do a great job. At this point, you have to have enough experience. You need to I would encourage you to trust yourself more, give yourself a little bit more grace, and maybe ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And also know that the greatest champions in the world, whatever, you take any walk of life. It's like, and I use this example, it's like, you don't win every game. It's just like, you don't have a great performance. You throw an interception, you drop the ball, whatever. As like, okay, so I'm a known quantity, right? And I kind of exist at a certain level, which I'm very grateful for. But and I know from my peers and myself that I am known for a handful of records. So that's me. Maybe I'm known for maybe 50 records. That's my profile. That's like that's what I hang my hat on, or what people hang my hat on, right? But I've made thousands of records, so it's just like, you don't win every time. And sometimes you make a great record and somebody doesn't know about it because it doesn't get heard. It's just like, I guess, it's just like, just realize that everybody's human, everybody misses the mark. And that, when you admire someone, you admire them for the few things that that they did great. And I'm sorry, this is not a 1-minute answer, but I think that this is a hugely important thing that everyone hears. I need to hear it for myself. It's good to hear, it's like, because I'm mixing stuff today. When we hang up this call, I'm going to go back to mixing. And, it's just like, I've got to check myself. It's like, is this great? Does this feel great? And then have enough confidence where I'm at in the process to send it out for comments and be secure enough with the feeling of my ability to get it across the finish line, that when the comments come back, sometimes, it's super rare when no comments come back. Comments will come back, and you have to be able to take it professionally with a grain of salt and look at it as an opportunity to succeed. And that's sort of that. I'll leave it at that.
I just want to say something, because I do feel passionate about this as well. And I just want to say, like, this applies to literally every single person doing whatever they do, like in life. I mean, and I just want to say, like, with the amount of noise out there, with the amount of videos you have access to, I just want to use an example of myself. Like, I watch a million guitar videos every day. I am a guitar player myself. I'm a singer. And if I spent the whole day looking at these incredible guitar players out there that can do whatever they want to do, and then look at myself and be like, well, shit, I have a lot of work to do here. Like, then I would just put the guitar down. I'm never going to be that good, right? If I really look at it that way. But you need to have a level of confidence in yourself. And really, the only way I could say it is just love yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, understand what you're good at, love yourself, have fun with it. Like, too often, like, we start looking at these things when you're, especially when you're looking at it as work, that it's not fun, or we forget that it's supposed to be fun at the end of the day, and we're creating something beautiful. And you just need to have fun with it, have confidence in yourself, love what you're doing, and block out the noise somehow. Like Jacquire's an incredible producer, but you're never going to be Jacquire King, right? You'll be yourself, John. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have your own talents that Jacquire will never have. You like, hone in on that. You know what I mean? Like just understand that, and don't compare yourself to other folks and what they're doing and how many plugins they use and whatever else it is, and how good they are at guitar, or how well they could shoot a basketball. Just do it for you. You know what I'm saying? And like, that goes for all aspects of our lives. And I have to remind myself of that every single day. But I mean, that would be my advice. Just be confident, have fun with it, and just, love yourself in that way. And you'll find good things from that, for sure.
Yeah. This thing in general can either be called or related to imposter syndrome. And that guy's a dick.
I've talked to so many people over the last 6 months that are all walks of life in the music industry, and that is the universal thread: imposter syndrome. Everyone feels like, when the fuck are they going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing? So, I mean,
yeah,
we all don't know what we're doing.
Yeah,
there's always a level of, we don't know what we're doing, but if you don't try,
yeah,
you don't have no opportunities to succeed. It's like, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Colton.
No, yes. That's exactly what it is. Like you just said, like literally every single mix I send out, I go through like, fuck, does this beat the ref? I don't even know. Like, poor Danny. I send Danny mixes all the time. Like, you just compare this, and he's probably like, Jesus. Like, but it's just is what it is. It's like everybody, you know, like Jacquire said, I have confidence in my skill set, and I know like you know, I can crush this mix, but I still every single time I'm like, did I don't know. This might suck, because that's always a possibility. Sucking might always be the possibility, and you got to be okay with it. And you got to give yourself, like Jacquire said, grace, because it's really, really easy to go on Instagram and see all this, you know, guitar shred videos. The thing you don't see is the 16 hours that went into that 30 clip, like 30 seconds.
Right.
You think you just busted that out.
Don't be fooled. Yeah.
So you can't. I think that's a big factor in a lot of people's unhappiness. And maybe, you know, comparison is the thief of joy. You have to
agreed, man.
Comparing yourself to other people and their level of success, because we all have different paths. We all started at different places, and your journey is not going to be the same on a long enough timeline. Hopefully we all find success, but that's, you know, everyone's journey is different. So
yeah. And I just wanted to add, also be thankful for that feeling, and that, you know, it's not a comfortable feeling, but if you can kind of flip it on its head and realize the value in it. Jacquire could show up to the studio every single day and make the same record that he made 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or yesterday. But that feeling of that feeling of not wanting to do that ever, and also just, you know, do I know what I'm doing, and like constantly having that feeling of I need to grow, I need to progress, is a positive thing. Sure. It doesn't feel positive, but if you shift your perspective on it and be grateful for it, otherwise you'd never grow. So
I think a big part of people's unhappiness is it's a mindset issue.
And that's thank you for I mean, Mark, that's like a perfect, I mean, yes, that's, you know, I'm glad that you said that, because that's like a perfect thing. We gotta, you know, not only it's about growth and change, and you know, it's like you know, I posted it today on my Instagram story. Like I get these yogi teas, and today's little nugget of wisdom was the only constant is change. Mm-hmm. And so we have to accept that. And in change means we are changing, our opportunities are changing, the context is changing, the next song you mix is changing. And we have to understand and accept that. And, you know, for me, it's just like, I like the challenge of change. I want something different in front of me, because I want to grow. Otherwise, if I'm punching the same button every day, you know, to do the same job, it's just like, I certainly do. If that's what I've got to do to provide for my family and so forth, I don't want to do it in this space. Music and this opportunity is sacred to me. It's like, I'd rather do something else. And keep this. And if that's the way it's important to me and important to you out there, then, you know, make sure that you're challenged and accepting of the challenges and accepting the results, and just show up and do your best. And, you know, I mean, I hope that you know, I hope that helps all of us, honestly.
Yeah. Awesome. Guys, this has been incredible. Thank you so much. Before we get out of here, I want to make sure that we, you know, highlight "Keep the Light On" is out. It's out. It's out now. New song from Oak and Ash coming June. You said 25th.
June 25th. Yeah, June 25th. Awesome. And for anybody in New York, you can follow us at Oak and Ash Music on Instagram. We have a show on that date as well. So there's some tickets available still. So feel free to grab those if you're in the area, and if not, then keep your eyes out for when we're in a town near you guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, Colton, thank you for joining us. Also, just popping in here today, last minute. Everybody, Colton has an amazing podcast called One More for Safety. You can find it on Spotify. Go check that out.
Absolutely worth listening. Yes.
Thank you.
And also want to point out to everybody, Jacquire just did an incredible live stream with Universal Audio and Moon Taxi at the Sound Emporium. That was a blast to watch, and I watch a lot of this stuff. So
thanks, Mark. Yeah, I think I will say that soon after 4th of July, we will have a follow-up for that. We're confirming the date, but it won't be too much longer before, you know, we'll have a sort of a wrap up like this for that. And so, you know, come join me there, and thanks for the mention, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks everybody. This has been an incredible journey. Yeah, the whole start to finish series and everything. Just
yeah, thanks again everybody that followed along. Thank you for your participation in Puremix, and everyone that submitted a mix. Hopefully it was worthwhile for everybody. Even if you didn't make honorable mention, I'm just very appreciative that you followed along and you put forth the effort to make a mix, and we'll look for you again in the future.
Awesome. All right, everybody. This is the part where we wave awkwardly at the screen and say
all right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.